In an earlier video, we looked at how to create queries to retrieve data from one table. Now we will create queries that retrieve data from two or more tables. We can use the same instructions that we learned querying one table, but in addition, we now need to learn how to join tables. In this example, we will use three tables. It will be car, owner, and postal address. The tables are connected through foreign keys. One owner will always have one postal code, like we see here, while one postal code can be used by many owners. So this is a typical one-to-many relationship. And here we have that one car can be owned by only one owner, while one owner can own many cars. So this is also a one-to-many relationship. We will run a script to create the tables, and we will also run some scripts to insert some test data into the tables. In what order should the tables be imported and why? Well, we have a foreign key that in this owner table case references postal code in postal address, and that means that if this table don't exist when we try to reference it, then the database management system will report an error. And we have the same here, that if we try to register an owner with an owner ID in the table car, and this table owner doesn't exist, then we will also have an error. So that means that first we will have to create postal address, then we can create owner, and at last we can create car. And the same regards to inserting data into the tables. If we insert some data here that references postal code in this postal address, then the postal code we try to reference in the owner table have to exist in postal address, or else we get an error. We have talked about that earlier, which is called referential integrity. I have published a zip file with some scripts. It's named car database -scripts. So I open this one, and here I find 4 scripts. We see that all have the file extensions .sql, which means that if we have SQL Server installed and we double click on one of these files, it will open in the query window in SQL Server. So I double click on this create car owner database script, and it will open in the query window, as we see. If we take a brief look at it, we see that the first instruction is that we will use master. We see that it's master that is chosen, it's top level, and go. After we have done that, we use the create database, car owner database. Earlier we have gone to database and selected new database, but now we let the script create the database. Then we will change this one to car owner database, and that we do by writing use car owner database. And after that we can run create table for each of the 3 tables in the order we specified. So now I click execute. Command completed successfully, and I go to databases and click the F5 button to refresh, and then I will find the car owner database here. And we can have a look at tables. I will see that we have the 3 tables here. I can go to database diagrams. The first time we have to click yes, then we can go to database diagrams again and right click and select new database diagram. Select all these 3 tables and add to the diagram and close, and then we will see that the 3 tables are related as we specified with foreign keys. Now we will import some test data into each of these tables, and we will start with postal address. Since we have a foreign key to postal address, these postal data have to exist before we reference them. Then we will import the owner ID data, so that if we later import some car data with owner IDs, then they will already exist in the owner table where we have a reference to. So we can open this postal address script, and here are lots of insert statements that will insert rows into this table. So I run it by clicking execute, and when it has finished, I open the next script, which is this car owner data. I could try before I run it and open the car data, just to see what happens if I don't follow the specified order. I can run this now, and then we see that we have lots of foreign key conflicts. And that is because we're now trying to reference data in this owner ID that doesn't exist in the other table yet. So I will go to the other script and insert these data into the owner table first by clicking execute. And then I go back to this script where I have had all those errors and execute it now. And now we see that it worked fine, because now these values are referencing something that exists in the other table. And if you want to check if the data has been inserted, we can go to one of these tables, for instance postal address, right click, select the top 1000 rows, and then we will see all the data are imported. So now we have the table structure with 3 tables, and we have imported some test data to all of the 3 tables, and then we can make some queries where we join the tables to retrieve some data. We want to retrieve data from these 2 tables. I write select star, which means that we will have to return all the columns. And then in the from part I specify both the tables, owner and postal address. The result will be all the columns in the first table and added to all the columns in the second table. So we will have a total of 6 columns where postal code is listed twice. The number of rows will be all the rows in the first table multiplied with all the rows in the second table. So if it were 5 rows in owner and 10 rows in postal address, then we will have a total return of 50 rows. And this is normally not what we want. This multiplied product is called the Cartesian product or the cross product. Normally we will in the select part only select some of the columns, and we will normally also use a where sentence, a where statement, to specify a kind of filter that results in a return of only some of the rows. When we specify the column names in the select part, we can normally use the column names directly, like owner ID and L name here. But if we have used the same column name in more than one of the tables that is included in our query, then we have to address it with the table name. Typically we have to do this for the foreign key column, which is referencing a primary key column in another table, and normally both these tables then are included in the query. If we want to operate with a shorter version of the table name instead of the full table name, then we can introduce aliases in the from part. Here we have written from owner as O and postal address as P, and then I will have to use these aliases in my entire query, also in the select part, even though it's first introduced in the from part. Like we see here, I've used O here and P here because we have introduced aliases in the next line. The column owner ID I will only find in the table owner in this case, so I didn't have to use this O dot in front, but I can use it, but I don't have to. But postal code, which is a foreign key in owner and a primary key in postal address, and it has the same name in both, and I will therefore have to use this table name dot and then the name of the column. So here we can use it but don't have to. Here we have to use it because more than one table has the same column name, and aliases are introduced in the from part, and then they also have to be used already in the select part. Most of the times we want to join tables, we want to use an Equijoin. Normally we then use what is a foreign key in one table referencing a primary key in another table. If you, for instance, want to retrieve some information from both this owner table and this postal address table, we can make an Equijoin on the column postal code, which is a foreign key here and which is referencing the primary key in the other table. So if you have on one owner with an owner ID, first name, last name, and a postal code, and we want to find out which city this postal code references, then we know that we can find this through the foreign key, and it's referencing a primary key in the other table. So if we have 3900 here and a points to ref 3900 here, we can find out which city this owner is registered in. So here I have introduced aliases. I have named the owner O and postal address P. And then I have to use it in all the query. But here I want to retrieve all the columns, so I use a star, and I use this Equijoin to say that I want to join on O.postal code, which is the foreign key in this owner table, and I want to equal this with postal code in the postal address table, which is the primary key that this foreign key is referencing. And then I will get a list with all the owners, each one row for each owner, and for each postal code I will also have the city that this postal code represents. And I see that I will get 2 columns with postal code. So we have where postal code in the first is equal to the postal code in the next table. And what we will get is the intersection of these 2 tables, owner and postal address. And here we see the result. And you should try it yourself in SQL Server. Just open a new query window and be sure that it references the database that we imported. And write the query and run it, and you will see the result that we showed earlier. So this is a simple syntax. We just use the where to tell that we want to retrieve the data where postal code in one of the tables are equal to postal code in the other table. There is an alternative syntax for doing this, and we will have a look at that. It's called an inner join, and then we have a select part just as in the other query, and the from part differs a bit from the other, because here we have from, and then we have one table, and here I also use this alias owner as O, and then we have this statement inner join, and then the next table is listed, the second table, and we also use an alias for this as P, and then there's another keyword named on, and so instead of where we use on, and then we tell which columns we want to join. So from the first table, inner join the second table, and on, and then the equal condition is specified. So this one will do exactly the same as the other, and we see here that we will have the same result. So you should try this too. When you want to retrieve data from more than one table, it's smart to use SQL Server's diagram tool, so that we get an overview over our table structure. And now I want to retrieve data from 4 columns, owner ID and L name in this owner table, and postal code and city from the other table named postal address. Then I need to join these 2 tables, and that I will do on the postal code column, which is a foreign key here and a primary key in the other table. And we will first do that with the where syntax to join the tables. We select our columns, which were the 4 columns listed here. Then we have a from part, and there we list the tables that we want to retrieve data from, which is owner and postal address. And we will then have a where condition where we specify the 2 tables we want to retrieve the data from, owner and postal address, and the columns we want to join, which is postal code, that is the foreign key in owner, and the primary key in postal address. We can also add other conditions, but we are not allowed to use where more than once. So if we want to add more conditions, then we add it with the AND operator. So we can have and so many as we want down here. So and postal address dot postal code like 3 and the %sign, which means that I will only have in return postal where those rows where the postal code starts with the number 3. So that limits the number of rows. You should try it in SQL Server, run this query, and check your result. I will also show the exact same query with the inner join instead of the where condition. The select part is exactly the same. We will list all the columns we want in return. And we have the from part, where we specify the first table, which is owner. We have this inner join, and we specify table number 2. We use the on keyword and specify which tables and on which column we want to join the tables, like here. And the other conditions, now we haven't used where. I said we could only use where once in a query, but here we have used the other syntax, and then we specified on instead of where. So now we can use where one time. But if we had more conditions, then we would have to add these with more and operators. And we can order the result if you want. I go to SQL Server, and now I can run both the queries, and I can compare them, and I see that the result will be the same no matter which of the two syntaxes I use. We can also retrieve data from more than 2 tables. Here we have an example with 3 tables, and that is all the tables we have in our database. Again, I marked the columns I want to retrieve data from. These 2 columns in car, and 2 columns in owner, and 1 column in postal address. And that means that I have to join all these 3 tables in my query. First, I will show how to do this with the where syntax. Again, we list all the columns we want to retrieve data from. Then we have this from part, where we now have to specify 3 tables, because we want to retrieve data from 3 tables. And then we will have to make 2 joins. This owner ID in the car have to be joined with owner ID in owner, and this postal code in owner have to be joined with postal code in postal address. The way to do that is to start with 2 of the tables, owner.postalcode equals postal address.postalcode. This is a foreign key, and this is a primary key. And as I said, we could only use 1 where condition, but we can add with as many and operators we want to. So we use and to join the 2 other tables, because now we want to join owner with car, and that we do by saying that owner.ownerID shall equal car.ownerID. So owner ID is the foreign key in car, which is referencing the primary key in owner. And then we have joined all the 3 tables, owner, postal address, and car. And then we can fill out the rest of the conditions. Here I've said that we will order by the column owner ID, and we will order it ascending. So you should try to run this in SQL Server and check the result. The alternative way to do it with the other syntax, the inner join syntax, that gets a bit more complex when you need to join 3 tables. So normally I would prefer to use the first syntax. But you should also be familiar with this way to do it, because if, for instance, SQL Server and many other database management systems generate code, they will often auto-generate it. Then they will often use this way to specify the syntax. The select part will be the same, and now we write from car. This is the first table here, inner join owner, which is the second table. On, and then we tell which column to be joined, and that is owner ID, which is the foreign key here, that shall be joined with owner ID, which is the primary key in the other. And having done that, we have to add the third table, which is postal address, and then we write inner join again and postal address, and say on again, and tell that now we will join postal code, which is the foreign key here, with postal code in postal address, which is the primary key in that table. So owner.postalcode equals postal address.postalcode. And then we can add other conditions like order by and more and use where and so on. So try to run both this one and the previous one in the SQL Server and see that you get the same results. In another video we looked at how to query one table. We can use the same statements when we query several tables. Here is an example with group by. So here we group the result by its owners, and then we use the count statement to tell how many rows there are in each owner group. Then we can see how many cars each owner is registered with. One thing to notice is that when we use this group by statement, then all the columns that we include in the select part have to be included also in this group by part. Even though I only want to group my results on this owner ID column, I still also have to add L name and city because I have them in the select part, or else I will get an error. We can also use having conditions after we have used the group by. A having condition is a kind of filter on the group selection we have done, like where is a filter to select which rows we want to. So don't mix the function of these two. So now I specified that after we have grouped the result, then we will only have in return the rows where there are at least 3 owners, since we have greater or equal to. And here we have that result. And the last thing we want to have a look at is how to make queries with additional constraints. Here we have a query with a select part. We have some columns we want to retrieve data from, and we have specified 3 tables from where we will retrieve these column data. Then we use a where sentence to make a connection between 2 of them, owner and postal address. And since we only could use one where statement, then we have to add the next joining with an AND function. So we say and then we make a connection between the 2 tables, owner and car, on this owner ID column. And after that we can specify other conditions. Just add more AND functions. So AND reg number like AA%, and price greater or equal to 300,000, and car make in, which means that it has to be in this specified set of data, Volvo, Nissan or Audi. So that's how we add additional constraints, and we can add as many as we want to. And in this case we have limited it so much so that we only have 1 row returned. We will also have a look at another kind of joining called outer join, but that we will do in another video. So this was all for now.